the first time the dog disappeared into the mountain fog. Sarah Whitman felt a cold pull in her chest, the kind that warns you something buried long ago is stirring again. The wind howled through the pines. The trail vanished under loose stone, and yet her old shepherd mix, Caleb, ran straight toward the rock face like he had been summoned. Sarah followed, heart pounding, unaware that this moment would unravel the quiet life she had built and lead her to discovery that would change everything she believed about loss, survival, and second chances. If you believe that silent heroes and unexpected paths can still give us second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this exist to remind us that miracles sometimes hide where no one thinks to look. Sarah lived alone high in the Colorado mountains, far from towns and even farther from her past. Years earlier, she had left behind a life that felt too loud, too crowded with disappointment. After losing her husband in a mining accident and watching her family drift away in the silence that followed, she chose solitude over pity. She bought a small, weather-beaten cabin on cheap land, worked seasonal jobs, and learned to rely on her hands and instincts. The mountains did not ask questions. They did not judge grief. They simply stood. Caleb was her only constant. He had been with her since the early days, a stray she found half-frozen on a forest road. They healed together, learning each other's rhythms, trusting the quiet. That was why it unsettled her when Caleb began wandering toward the same rocky ridge every morning, disappearing for hours and returning with dirt on his paws and a strange urgency in his eyes. At first, Sarah assumed it was a den or animal trail, but the behavior persisted. Caleb would sit by the door at dawn, whining softly, then bolt up the moment she let him loose. One afternoon, driven by concern and curiosity, she followed. The ridge was steep and dangerous, scattered with loose shale and ancient pines twisted by wind. Caleb stopped at a jagged opening barely visible behind hanging moss and stone. A cave. Sarah felt her pulse spike. Locals avoided caves in these mountains. Old stories spoke of collapsed mines, hidden shafts, and forgotten secrets. The air inside was colder than the mountain breeze, damp and heavy with age. Sunlight barely reached past the entrance, but as Sarah stepped deeper, she noticed something that made her freeze. This cave was not natural. The walls bore marks, tool cuts, human hands. Her flashlight beam swept across the interior, revealing rusted metal, old wooden beams, and something else that stole her breath. A wagon, a small, iron-framed wagon, half buried in sediment and dust, its wheels corroded with time. Sarah's mind raced. She remembered a story told in town once about a missing prospector from the early 1900s who vanished with a wagon load of ore. People laughed it off as legend. No one ever searched this high up. No one thought it real. She approached slowly, brushing dirt from the wagon's side. Beneath the rusted boards, she noticed a false bottom. Her hands trembled as she pried it open. Inside were leather-bound parcels, sealed tight against moisture, stacked carefully as if meant to be retrieved. When she opened the first, the flashlight reflected back in blinding brilliance. Gold coins. Old, heavy, unmistakable. Beneath them were documents, mineral deeds, and certificates bearing names she recognized from local history. Sarah sank to the cave floor, overwhelmed. This was no accident. Someone had hidden this deliberately, intending to return. They never did. The discovery shook her to her core. She had come to mountains to escape the idea that life could surprise her again. Now, it stood before her in silence, asking her what she would do with it. Days passed as Sarah wrestled with fear and disbelief. She told no one. She returned to the cave, cataloging what she found, learning its history. The value was staggering, worth a fortune beyond anything she had ever imagined. But the cave was not the only revelation. As she explored deeper, Sarah found old personal items left behind. A journal, brittle with age, written by a man named Thomas Whitman. Her heart stopped. Whitman was her maiden name. The journal told of a prospector who fled injustice, hiding his life's work in a mountain to protect it from those who tried to steal it. He wrote of family, of hoping one day his blood would find what he left behind. Sarah realized then that this was not just treasure. It was inheritance lost to time, waiting for someone who never believed they deserved anything more than survival. As news eventually reached authorities, historians confirmed it. Sarah was a direct descendant. The fortune was legally hers. The quiet mountain woman who bought a rusty wagon for $1 at a county auction years earlier, believing it only scrap for firewood, now understood why fate had placed it in her path. The wagon she bought had once been part of the same prospector's journey. Hidden inside its frame, long since emptied by time, were markings matching those in cave, pieces of a story scattered across her life, unnoticed until now. But wealth did not rush into her heart the way grief once had. Instead, responsibility did. Sarah used part of the fortune to restore the land, protect the mountain from mining corporations eager to exploit it once rumors spread. She funded shelters in nearby towns, supported search and rescue teams, and established a historical trust to preserve forgotten stories like her ancestors. Her cabin changed, but it did not grow loud. She remained grounded, still hiking with Caleb, still waking to pine-scented air. But something inside her softened. She allowed people back in. She spoke at community halls, sharing her story not as a miracle, but as a reminder that what we run from sometimes waits patiently to heal us. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that hope can hide in silence and that second chances don't always announce themselves, please take a moment now to like, comment, and share this video so others can feel it too. Before we end, we have a special request. Please comment Mountain Faith if you believe that what is meant for you will find you, even in the quietest places. On clear mornings, Sarah still visits the cave, not for the gold, but for gratitude. Caleb waits at the entrance, tail wagging, as if he always knew. And in the stillness of the mountains, where secrets once slept beneath stone, a woman who came seeking peace found something far greater. Not fortune alone, but purpose reborn.